Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Friends. I'm Bill Staten. This is my good friend and partner, Brando Reyna, and we're here to provide our insights on the markets and the economy. Today is February the 15th. Navarre Capital Management is a registered investment advisory firm headquartered here in Charlotte. We create customized portfolios for individuals, families, and corporations, and nonprofit organizations. We emphasize individual stocks and bonds. We also provide retirement planning and estate plan review services. The information provided here is for general information purposes only, and all expressions of opinion here are subject to change without notice to respond to changing market conditions. So Brando, again, welcome. Glad to be with you, my friend.
Good to see you.
I always like to start out with a little bit of humor, and it gets everybody in a good mood. I wrote a piece back 9 years ago called Bill Staten's Fearless Forecast for 2014. And the question was, Brando, what do you call an economist with a forecast?
I don't know.
The answer, wrong. Another quote, I don't know who this came from, he who lives by the crystal ball eats a lot of glass. And Warren Buffett said, and I thought this was good advice, in the business world, the rearview mirror is always clearer than the windshield.
Isn't that the truth?
It really is.
Especially now with all the different divergent indicators that we see in the economy.
Yeah. Wanted to comment for all of our listeners and viewers. History is on our side for quite an extended period of time, and this data goes all the way back for the S&P 500, which has been around 100 years or so. With data going, we have data in a chart which we're not going to show, but after a midterm election, which we've just gone through, over an extended 24-month period going forward, stocks returned an average of almost 34%.
It's pretty good.
Which is a phenomenal return. Listen to this, the last time the S&P 500 index produced a negative return over the 12 months following a midterm election was 1939. So we have the odds on our side for a strong market going forward.
Yeah.
So we're going to come up with that chart number one. Okay, and there it is. You want to make a comment about it?
Yeah. The first chart that Bill and I talked about putting on is, you've probably seen it a couple times before, but it shows what the returns would be if you stay fully invested versus if you were to pull out and you miss certain days of the market. And this chart in particular starts, the time periods from January 2002, January 2002 to this recent January.
Right, 20 years.
Yeah, and the difference is astronomical, Bill. I think one thing that when you brought this chart up, I wanted to point out, if our listeners go back and they look to see what had just happened in January of 2002, they'll see that the market was down almost 30% from its peak, right? And it was a very scary time to invest. There were lots of things in the headlines that would have, scared the pants off you. But if you stuck with a fully invested strategy, as the chart shows, it definitely proved out better for you over the long term.
Exactly, because trying to time getting out at the right time and then trying to get back in at the right time is almost impossible, as this table and many tables like it show. And the difference is astronomical. If you stayed fully invested over this last 20-year period, you annualized at 9.4% a year. If you missed just the 10 best days over that 20-year period, your annualized rate of return was only 5.2%.
Yeah.
Which is a phenomenal difference. If you missed the 20 best days over that 20-year period, your annualized return was only 2.5%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's phenomenal beyond belief. So you just got to stick with it. That's why we don't market time here at Navarre, because we don't know how to do it. Maybe some people do, but we don't know how to do it. We know that we don't know how to do it, and we don't attempt to do it. And we try to keep any of our clients from doing it, although on occasion some want to do it. But we do our best to prevent them from doing so.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. In one of the footnotes on the slide, it talks about how the proximity of the best days in relationship to the worst days and how close they are, and they're
Almost back to back.
Yeah, within a matter of just a few weeks. And I remember back in March of 2020, I mean, it was super volatile, and to be able to predict when those days happen on both the good or the bad is just incredibly hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of mob psychology, a lot of behaviors that are going into that.
And another factor that's on our side is the fact that the market is rarely down 2 back-to-back years in a row, and it was down last year. And since I was born way back in 1947, we've only had 2 periods where the market was down 2 consecutive back-to-back years. So that's pretty good odds in our favor that this should be an up years, although that is not a forecast. That's just simply based on looking at history.
Yeah. You know, I think that the propensity for companies and people to overcome obstacles is a really good track record, but somehow we always tend to forget that we continue to make it happen and move forward and grow and make things better.
That's right. And we've got this, as we show this table here, the average return after a losing year is about 15%. So that's pretty good.
It is.
Yes.
And I think it kind of goes back to the point of, if you invest when others are fearful, kind of like the Warren Buffett adage is, that's the best time. Invest when other people are fearful, and look to sell when other people are being greedy and they're optimistic. And that tends to be a good recipe. And after a year of negative returns on both stocks and bonds, that would be a time that a lot of investors are fearful.
I think that's right. And what we've noticed, at least among the companies in which we have you all invested, they continue to maintain their dividend increases at the kind of rate that we anticipated. Their balance sheets continue to be sturdy, so we rate that as a big positive. And we still see a tremendous amount of bearishness in the marketplace, which conversely is bullish. And I wanted to end this segment with something that, looking at historically, I think is very, very positive, looking down the next 8, 9, or 10 years down the road. The stock market, if you look at it in long periods of time, goes through long up cycles and long down cycles, and within those what are called secular uptrends and secular downtrends, there are interim bull and bear markets. Well, we went through one period, I rate anyway, from 49 to 68, and the market compounded at about 16% a year. We went through another secular bull market from 1982 to the year 2000, and the market compounded at about 20% a year. Now, again, this is not a prediction, but if history were to repeat for the next 8 or 9 years, right now we're only about halfway through what appears to me, Brando, to be the third great secular bull market that started about 10 years ago. And if history were to repeat, listen to this, if the market were to grow 10% a year for the next 10% a year compound, in the next 9 years down the road, it would be around 80,000. If it grew at 11% a year, it would be around 87,000. So we could see huge numbers, and they sound huge compared to where we are today, around 34,000 or so, but they're not if you just look at historic patterns and where we could potentially be, particularly with all the pessimism out there.
Yeah, the power of compounding is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
When growth on top of growth really gets you there, and it's not a large obstacle or hurdle to overcome.
And those types of numbers, again, may sound staggering, but based on history, and if history were to repeat, which so many times it does, they're really not.
Yeah.
Wanted to close with something. This came out of a newsletter that I get, a financial newsletter, and it had part of a speech from Martin Luther King Jr. Don't know when he gave it or where he gave it, but I wanted to close with a paragraph from that speech because I thought it was really, really good. The way to be integrated with yourself is be sure that you meet every situation of life with an abounding love. Never hate, because it ends up in tragic, neurotic responses. Psychologists and psychiatrists are telling us today that the more we hate, the more we develop guilt feelings and we begin to subconsciously repress or consciously suppress certain emotions, and they all stack up in our subconscious selves and make for tragic, neurotic responses. And this may not be the neurosis of many individuals as they confront life that is an element of hate there. And modern psychology is calling on us now to love. But long before modern psychology came into being, the world's greatest psychologist who walked around the hills of Galilee told us to love. He looked at men and said, love your enemies, don't hate anybody. It's not enough to love your friends, because when you start hating anybody, it destroys the very center of your creative response to life and the universe. So love everybody. Hate at any point is a cancer that gnaws away at the very vital center of your life and your existence. It is like eroding acid that eats away the best and objective center of your life. Isn't that a great quote?
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
The power of positivity is so
Yeah.
wonderful.
And just destroying
really is.
hate.
Yeah.
Just destroying hate.
I remember we had one client, and we won't say the name, but they were I don't know if you remember, there were bumper stickers made, and it says, "We don't have to agree on anything to be nice to one another."
I think of her right now. You know exactly who you're talking about.
And,
And I have that bumper sticker. I've given a bunch of those to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it just goes to show, it's like, we'll overcome. We'll figure it out.
All righty. Well, that's it for Brando and me, and we thank you all, and we love you, and we appreciate you, and let us know how we can help you. Take care. God bless.